ABC Listen. Podcasts, radio, news, music and more.
Hello, I'm Julia Baird.
And I'm Jeremy Fernandez, and we want to let you know about our pod. It's called Not Stupid, where every week we chat about the stories that we're a bit obsessed with. It's part news, part internet rabbit holes, basically, Jules.
And a lot of chat about poetry and cake, actually. It's called Not Stupid. You can find it on the ABC Listen app.
Elon Musk had a huge impact on Donald Trump's campaign for the presidency, throwing at least $130 million at it. But what role will the richest man in the world really play when Trump steps into the White House in just over 70 days' time? Today, political scientist Geoff Kabaservice from the Niskanen Centre in Washington, D.C., on the people Trump will need if he wants to rule like a dictator, even for a day. I'm Sam Hawley on Gadigal land in Sydney. This is ABC News Daily. Geoff, during the campaign, Donald Trump said he wanted to rule like a dictator for a day, and he also said it could get nasty, particularly in the beginning. So broadly, what does he mean by that, do you think?
So the great question that everyone is facing in American life right now is, can we take Donald Trump at his word? Mm-hmm. He's promised to do a lot of things, including being a dictator on day one, including some very, very divisive programs that would probably cause disaster if he were to implement them. But the question is, does he mean it? And that's what we're all waiting to find out.
Yeah, because he's somewhat unpredictable. I think that's safe to say.
That's his brand.
If he does, though, want to take this approach of being a dictator, even if it is just for one day, he really will, Geoff, want people around him who support that, right? And we know during his last presidency, he was really frustrated by people within the administration who didn't quite see things like he sees them. Just remind me of that, first of all.
So when Donald Trump was first elected in 2016, I don't think anyone thought he would win, including Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And as a result, there was no real plan in place to actually have any kind of transition or to put the people around Donald Trump who shared his vision and could make it happen. So he basically was forced to turn to the old Republican establishment, people who had served under previous Republican presidents like the Bushes. And they were the so-called adults in the room. They curbed his worst instincts. They advised him not to do the things that they thought would actually cause real disruptions. And in some cases, they sort of went behind his back to make sure that the things he wanted to happen didn't. What's very different about this administration is that Trump won't have any of those adults around him anymore. He'll have people who have been selected, people who are basically Trumpian ethno-nationalists.
Wow.
And they want to do the best that they can to actually implement some of his most radical programs.
Wow. Okay, so this time he wants to surround himself with his staunchest supporters. One of them, of course, is Elon Musk, who poured millions and millions into the campaign.
His name is Elon Musk. He saved free speech. He created so many different great things. Take over, Elon. Yes, take over.
As you can see, I'm not just MAGA, I'm dark MAGA.
Trump's already offered him the role of sort of cost cutter, hasn't he? Tell me about that.
Well, he has, but it's not really clear, like a lot of things in Trump world. You know, Elon Musk has been very much on Trump's side in this campaign and has indeed poured enormous amount of resources into his campaign. But the question as to whether Musk will actually prove to be a loyalist is yet to be determined. He's a big ego, and Trump tends not to like other big egos around him who have different ideas about what ought to get done. So Musk has proposed cutting $2 trillion a year from the federal budget, which would be an enormous reduction and essentially would get rid of almost all kinds of social welfare programs outside of defense and some of the universal entitlements. So that would cause enormous disruptions to American life. It would balance the budget, theoretically, but then again, maybe not. So it's unclear if Trump would actually give Musk that kind of leeway to implement that disastrous a program, I think.
So he might not want to be as friendly, I suppose, with Musk as he was in the lead up to the campaign, although that remains to be seen. But he was in the room with Trump on election night, and Elon Musk actually joined a call with Trump, which he had with the Ukrainian leader after the result was known, which is quite incredible.
It is. And, clearly Musk is going to serve that kind of maybe informal but extremely important role. Will have his fingers in many important national and international decisions. But even there, it's not clear exactly what Musk wants to happen in Ukraine because, for example, he's been providing the Ukrainian forces with the Starlink internet connections that they have needed to make an effective defense against the Russians. Will he turn that off at Trump's behest? It's not clear.
Well, let's talk then about Robert F. Kennedy Jr. because he will also be present in the administration. Of course, he pulled out, people will remember, as an independent presidential candidate to back Trump, and Trump has promised to reward him. So what's he going to be doing? Because we know that his views on things like vaccines and health are really extreme.
So this is something that a lot of people are waiting for with bated breath. What will be RFK Jr.'s role in a Trump administration?
And he's going to help make America healthy again.
Trump has talked offhandedly about handing control over any number of health programs to Kennedy, which would be disastrous because some of these are institutions like the Center for Disease Controls, which are meant to prevent against pandemics and the spread of infectious diseases. RFK Jr. is indeed an opponent of vaccinations. Does that mean that schools would no longer be able to mandate that children be vaccinated against common diseases before they arrive in the classroom? Does that mean that we would actually see an outbreak of diseases that we haven't seen, like polio, for decades now? It's really not clear. But then again, Trump might actually just be toying with us, as he often does, and RFK might just have a sort of symbolic or ceremonial role in the administration rather than an actual policymaking role.
Yeah, okay, because Kennedy also wants to eliminate fluoride from the water supply. It's so hard to tell, isn't it, whether or not Trump actually supports that or he doesn't, if he'll do it or he won't.
Just like it's hard to tell sometimes if we're actually living through Dr. Strangelove or some other reality.
It's very true. All right, but look, Geoff, in the end, what we do know, I think this is safe to say, that Trump wants to shake up the whole system. He's anti-establishment. He cares very little for impartial bureaucracy. He wants public servants who agree with him, and he wants to create this sort of Trump America. So can he do that? How will he do that?
So there's a number of things that Trump has said he will do beyond day one of his putative dictatorship, which, if he did implement them, would be big disruptions to the way American life has conducted itself, big disruptions, I would argue, to liberal democracy. Among some of the most concerning are his having said that he would consider pulling out of NATO, that he would essentially end the U.S.-led global order that's been in place since 1945, that he would return to essentially an autarkic position of tariffs, with 20% on everything coming into the country and 50 to 100% on goods coming from China. He has said that he would round up some 15 million people who are illegally in the United States, put them in camps, and deport them. So Trump has said a lot of these things that he would do. And to my mind, one of the most concerning is the program you just raised, which is called Schedule F. It would allow Trump to classify any number of career civil servants as at-will employees, and he would be able to relocate them to thousands of miles away from Washington, D.C., or maybe fire them altogether. And as you said, replace them with loyalists, with toadies. And it essentially would absolutely eviscerate American governmental capacity. But the question, again, with all of these things is, again, is this just Trump's bark being worse than his bite? Because you could actually argue that what Trump really does is jawbone in an attempt to shake off stasis and sclerosis. So, for example, Trump jawboned our European allies into upping their defense budgets. And that arguably was a good thing. And people tend to forget this, but Joe Biden actually built upon Trump's trade restrictions on China. He hardly did away with them. So again, it's just not clear what Trump will do and whether there will be people in place who will restrain his worst instincts, whether he himself might actually worry about a revolt of the bond traders that would actually tank the economy if he were to do some of these things. It's just not clear.
Yeah, very unclear. All right, we do know, though, that Susie Wiles will be his chief of staff. Trump calls her the ice maiden.
Susie likes to stay sort of in the back, let me tell you. The ice maiden. We call her the ice maiden.
So is that a significant appointment, and what does it tell us, if anything?
Well, Susie Wiles was, I think, a very effective campaign manager for Trump, or co-campaign manager. And she actually does come from a relatively establishment, maybe Reaganite part of the Republican Party. So I suppose there's some hope that she would actually be one of the so-called adults in the room around Trump. But nonetheless, we shall see. It is a significant appointment to have a woman in the position of chief of staff. And Wiles does strike many people as a capable individual. So we'll see what happens.
So I know we're really jumping ahead of ourselves now, Geoff, but let's look at what sort of America it will be in 2028, when we'll all be a bit older, when Trump is done. How much can a US president really change a nation in those 4 years?
Well, I think what we're all waiting to see is whether this election is something that portends a realignment of our politics, or whether it will be more of a blip. Of course, if Trump does tank the economy, if he produces massive civil unrest that he tries to quell with the military, his presidency might be shorter than we think and less durable in terms of its influence. But what a lot of people are wondering as they look at this Trump election is whether Trump has actually forged a new political coalition in American life that might even outlast him as a dominant political coalition, something like what Franklin Delano Roosevelt did with the New Deal coalition, something like what Ronald Reagan did. Essentially, these individuals founded a political order more than just winning elections. Their positions proved to be so popular that the opposition party had to adopt them in their turn. And what Donald Trump has done, which I think is really significant, is that he seems to have forged a multi-ethnic, multiracial working-class coalition. And the Democrats have been left as the party of the college-educated, which is not the greatest position to be in when you consider that 2/3 of Americans don't have college degrees. And it could be that this is actually going to be the shape of our politics for decades to come.
Well, don't tell me that Musk will be the next Republican candidate, will you? In 4 years' time.
One never knows. One never knows. That's the beauty of American politics, as well as the frightening part of it.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, just give me your feeling, though, Geoff. What sort of America do you think it will be in 2028 when Trump is finished?
I don't know. I kind of gave up trying to predict the shape of the future a long time ago. What's the old saying? Prediction is difficult, especially about the future. I think it would be in Trump's best interest to govern as somebody who is shaking things up, but somebody who doesn't shake them up so much that the whole fish tank breaks. There are a lot of areas in American life where there's a feeling of stasis. And one of the factors, curiously, that Democrats have presided over more than Republicans is widening income inequality. And the sense of many people in different parts of the country in non-college related occupations that they've been left behind and frankly looked down upon by a self-serving elite. And it could be that Donald Trump could make some salutary changes in these kind of structures of American life that would help more people to get ahead and feel more a part of the system. On the other hand, there are also a lot of very negative outcomes that are imaginable if Donald Trump is in fact unleashed to follow his worst instincts. So that's what we're looking to.
Geoff Kabaservice is the Vice President for Political Studies at the Niskanen Centre, which is a centre-right think tank in Washington, D.C. This episode was produced by Sydney Peed and Anna John. Audio production by Sam Dunn. Our supervising producer is David Cody. I'm Sam Hawley. Thanks for listening.